Why are the dragons horny? Why is everyone horny? Why are we doing this? What's happening?
Hello and welcome to the Fangirl Feels podcast. My name's Tanya.
My name's Olivia.
And we're Fangirl Feels. We give an emotional analysis of all the books, TV shows, movies, and music that give us all the feelings and probably give you all the feelings too. Olivia, I love your outfit.
Thank you. Thank you. I am a dragon rider. This is my dragon riding outfit / Top Gun. Are planes just the modern dragons? Maybe.
We think so.
Yeah, that's the statement I'm making with this outfit. Apparently. No, I'm a dragon rider.
Olivia,
in the fourth wing.
Can you see anything?
No, I literally can't. These sunglasses, I can't see screens. Like, I can't really see you right now. We're just chatting. It's fine. But I think this is a vibe. This should be their dragon rider outfits.
Yeah, they should just combine Top Gun into this. If they ever make this a movie, just make it Top Gun, but with dragons.
I think that would do really well. I think that would work.
Xaden, Tom Cruise as Xaden.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that could go either way. The girlies may like that. It depends. The book talk girlies. It depends. But he's too old. Sorry, Tom
Nothing
Cruise.
matters. So, yeah.
No, the Top Gun, I feel bad for whoever gets cast as Rhysand in any Sarah J. Maas like adaptation. Like, that man it's never gonna end well. It's not gonna end well.
No. They're gonna rip him apart. Sorry in advance, whoever you are.
Yeah.
But I hope it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. That sounds great.
It does. That would be, I mean, he's a good looking dude, but is he too white? Is he too white?
Oh, he might be too white.
Yeah. But I mean, granted, they're all more like morally and ethnically ambiguous.
Morally ambiguous. True.
Yeah. They're both morally and ethically ambiguous. Ethnically ambiguous. So
yeah,
it could work. You can make it. We just give him like a tan.
Yeah.
Be like, there you go. That's not good. Don't do that.
Don't do brown face. We said it first.
Yes. Breaking news. Do not do brown face. Or just like stop pretending people are people of color when they're not people of color. You know? Like, let's stop saying that they're like dark brown, like they're brown, and then that's like, oh, they're a person of color. Like I don't know. Be explicit about it. Let's do that.
Please.
Yeah.
There are more people of color in the world than paler people. So, you know what? I'm just going to reel it back in.
This turn. I mean, we're just saying cast people of color and people of color characters. Yeah. That's it.
Agreed. But anyways, I'm just wearing I got this from Abercrombie & Fitch years ago. It's like faux leather. I'm in my writing leathers just like Olivia, and I figured this was like a very whimsical dress. So
you're writing leather.
My hair is great. Thank you. My hair is braided too. So
you should have spray painted the bottom white
because of violet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have literal spray paint, and next time I will damage my hair. I'm sorry I didn't commit enough to the bit.
Yeah, how dare you? This was your idea.
It was my idea. Sorry to myself.
I'm kidding. You look great. Yes, you. I believe you're in the fourth wing.
I'm a squadron leader, actually. So
yes. What is the difference? We'll get. This is gonna go off topic.
Here we go. Yeah. Anyways,
squadron leader.
So, anyways, we're going to talk about fourth wing today. If you haven't picked up on our banter so far, and if you are new to the book and you haven't heard about it, I'm so sorry. You're probably confused for the first 5 minutes, but we do want to add a spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about fourth wing, and we're not going to keep out spoilers. So keep listening if you've read the book, and you can hop off and check out our other content. We're on Spotify, YouTube, and literally anything else you can think of. There's too many at this point to name, so just find us.
Yes, and then come back and listen to us when you read Fourth Wing. And if you haven't heard of Fourth Wing, what rock are you living under? Come on, get on under the rock and join us. It's great over here.
Yes, and it's even more fun if you've read ACOTAR first. So read all 5 books of ACOTAR, then hop on over to Fourth Wing, and then there'll be 5 books of Fourth Wing. You'll just keep reading forever, and it's great. And that's what we're trying to have you do.
Welcome. Join us. It's a great time over here. We look like this. Should I take off the sunglasses now?
If you can't see, then yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can we'll take them off. We're good now.
But wait, before you leave, we're going to give a spoiler-free star review so that you know whether to check it out or not. We'll give it based off our opinions, take it with a grain of salt, read other reviews out there, and then decide to read Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing is a new adult novel published by Entangled Publishing on May 2nd, 2023. It's about a young scribe named Violet Sorrengail who is thrust into an elite war college for dragon riders, where the only rule is to graduate or perish. It's an addictive fantasy with epic levels of spice and world building. So, Olivia, what's your star rating?
So my star rating for this series has changed. This book has changed a few times. I started at 3.5, which I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads just because now I kind of regret doing that. I would give it a solid 3, 3 stars. I think this is a fine book for someone who's interested in getting into like fantasy or somebody who just like hasn't read in a while and is interested in starting to read. I think this is like a good entry level book, right? We all need like those books that are just easy and just easy to get into and like it reignites your love of reading. I think this would be a good one for that. Yes. Otherwise, many quality issues, which we'll get into, but I had fun. So 3 stars. What about you?
I'm in a similar boat. I gave it about like a 3.5. I haven't put it on my Goodreads yet, but that's probably what I'd give it. And I thought that, and I'm not alone in thinking this, I saw this in other reviews too. It has ACOTAR, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Hunger Game vibes, kind of post-apocalyptic vibes, kind of we're going to the school where you could potentially die vibes. So if you're into that, I think you might like this. I sped through it. I listened to it within a week's time. It was just addicting the way it's written. And is it well written? I think that's a subjective term. I think the writer probably had a goal of making it fun. And I think that there are things that I wish she would have improved upon, like background of characters, the plot. Would you say it's a character-driven novel? I don't even know. It's more like, if you're into romance novels, I think you'll like this, because I think there's fantasy novels out there that have romance in them that do it better than this. I think this is romance-driven, very much so Riverdale-ish, and so that's why. A good beach read, if you will.
I agree. Yeah, this is if you like romance but want to try out a fantasy, this is a great one, because this is absolutely romance-driven. Like the plot and the world building are background noise. And for better or for worse, I don't know why I keep saying that. Like it's there to move the story forward, and becomes its crutch in a little bit when it's like attempting to do world building. But regardless, we'll get into that. The plot, like the romance is the key thing. That's why you're reading this, right? It's the romance. So if you like romance, you want some fantasy in your romance, this is going to give you that. It's going to give you that. And you're going to have a good time.
You'll have a good time. And if you need to fill the void of ACOTAR, which I know we did, like, again, it's similar. If you've been listening to our podcast, we have issues with the writing in ACOTAR, but we do think Sarah J. Maas does character-driven writing very well. Not so much the plot and the universe building, but I think she does the character writing very well, and it's intriguing. And so, like, if you're missing that type of writing with dragons and fantasy, go ahead and check this book out. I think it's a good, like, supplement.
Yeah. And like a book doesn't need to be like quote unquote objectively good for it to be worth your time. And I think this is one of those. I think this is, if you fit into all of those things we've said, this is a book to check out, and you'll have fun. And I had fun. Did you have fun?
I did. And
okay.
Listeners, if you haven't read it, I say go ahead and leave now. We're going to give our ratings and reviews of this book with some spoilers. So now let's dive deeper into our thoughts with some context that might be spoilers for people.
Yes, spoilers coming now. This is the final warning, and then we will move on.
Yes,
spoilers. Yeah, leave.
So, get out of here.
Get out.
Follow our podcast, and we're Fangirl Feels Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you. All right. Anyways, what do you think, Olivia?
Well, this isn't really spoiler. The names are embarrassing. Names are embarrassing. That was one of my first thoughts. I couldn't even get past it. I was like, Xaden, like, what? This is fanfiction.net. I'm sorry. Again, I'm bought in, but that name killed me. We're gonna get into this concept of romantasy. I know we have this written down. This is making me realize that I'm going down this rabbit hole of like this is horny dragons. This is like horny fantasy, right? And I'm not loving this thing. This is fine. Like I enjoyed this, but like this is the like beginning of a subgenre that I realize like I need to step away from a little bit. Like this is the last bit I'll go, I think. Why are the dragons horny? Why is everyone horny? Why are we doing this? What's happening?
That was
What's going
so
on?
central to the plot. The
It
horniness.
was. It really was. Like I wish it wasn't so. I mean, the part that I'm thinking of specifically is like the worst thing I've ever read in my life, where the like dragon horniness like goes down the like bond to her, to Violet. Um, that's the worst thing. I found the plot to be very predictable. I found the surprise at the end to be incredibly predictable. The entire time when she's mentioning her dead brother, I'm like, your brother's alive. I get it. I understand. Even if you don't, I do. I know that he's alive. And I knew that Xaden was obviously working with some rebel. Like, it was like very clear, like that Xaden and his gang cousin friend group are like are rebels, obviously. I was like, how does Violet not see this? And then also, why are we giving the children of rebels dragons? What is wrong with this world? What is the leadership doing that they're like, you guys are the children of the rebels that we beat? We're gonna force you to be part of fourth wing of this war college. And if you succeed, you get a dragon because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that could go wrong there. Like, what? That's where the world building falls apart. Like you think 2 seconds too long about this book and you're like, this doesn't make any logical sense. But that's okay. It's a romance. It's not going to make sense.
I thought about that too. Why would rebellious kids be suddenly have nationalism for this like country? And like I understand they put like those rules like if you're three rebellious kids together or more, that one General Melgrum can't see you or something. Like there's like specific like magical rules.
It's true. It's like, why would you do that? And then you give these kids the most like powerful weapon you have, and you're like, nothing could go wrong. Like, this is gonna be fine.
What could
No issues.
happen?
What could possibly happen? That's why when you read the description, I was like, in epic world building, I'm like, is it epic world building if I think about this for longer than a second and it falls apart? No. And then why are we murdering children who are trying to join your war college to fight this supposed war that no one knows about? No one understands this war, but like we're putting them into this college, and then if they die, we're like, oopsies, but we need people. We're lacking soldiers, but like people are dying left and right and we're not doing nothing to save them.
Yeah, that didn't make sense because it's like I can understand if like the rebel kids died and they were like, oh yeah, that's why we're doing this. But then actual non-rebels died, and I'm like, why? Well, you need soldiers, no? Am I wrong?
That's what they established too. It's like established that we need soldiers, and then they're just like falling off this parapet in the first 20 seconds of the book, and you're like, you couldn't have saved them. And like Xaden has shadow powers. Like, couldn't he like grab them like before they fall? Like, is this necessary?
Yeah, and there's so many rules with the wing leaders. Like, oh, you can't overstep your rule. I'm like, aren't you a rebellious kid? What is going on? Why are you so afraid of breaking the rules? You know what I mean? Like when Violent. Wow, look at me already using the nickname. When Violet was, about to be killed by the other rebellious kids and Xaden didn't step in, I'm like, why?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, you can't think too hard about these things. You can't think too. And then like the entire time, Xaden, like, so Violet. Now I'm about to say violence. Violet is like worried the entire time, like Xaden's out to kill her, because like Xaden's dad was like murdered by Violet's mom or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure that's it. And like the boys, it will be like the man's like leaning against a wall, And she's like, he's gonna kill me. And he's like, and then he like explicitly tells her, no, I'm not gonna kill you. And she's like, he's gonna kill me. I'm like, how many times does he have to tell you that he's not gonna kill you for you to believe it? Like, this is such arbitrary state. I'm confused. And then when they get like bonded by the dragons, and then he's like, well, I definitely am not going to kill you. And I was like, well, we knew you weren't going to kill her because you said you weren't going to kill her like 20 pages ago or like 20 chapters ago. I'm confused. So just strange writing decisions that were made, I think.
I agree. And again, it took us 2 seconds to break that down.
Yeah, it falls apart so quickly. And we'll get it. I don't want us to like get out everything right, but it's just like, that's where it's like when it says the epic world build, epic levels of spice and world building. Like, the world building was thought about for about 25 seconds at most. And it works for this. I think it's fine. The target demographic doesn't need epic world building, but let's not claim that it has epic levels of world building. Like, let's put this in its place. Again, I was a fan. I enjoyed it. Let's put this in its place.
Put it in its place.
Yeah.
So we have thoughts on around why that might be, on like why this writer decided to pursue the specifically dragon and fantasy smut romance genre. And here's a deep dive, a short deep dive into Rebecca Yarros's background. So Rebecca Yarros is the writer of the book. She's the author. She's a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of over 15 novels, actually. So this isn't her first book. She's from Colorado, but currently lives in upstate New York with her husband and 6 kids, and she's been a military wife for almost 20 years. And here's what's I think is interesting. Her husband is now retired from combat aviation. So there's clearly like aviation themes in this book, and I think probably she drew from real-life examples from her husband.
That makes sense. So my outfit is fitting. I should put on my Top Gun sunglasses again, just for the sake of it. I saw that, like, I knew that she had some military background because she mentions it in her like dedication. I think she says something about being like a military wife, and not that I read those very like seriously, but I read it this time. And I mean, the fact that it's in a war college, I don't know. It had some like pro-military vibes to it to some extent.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, is this America? Oh, I'm gonna edit that.
Oh, I just like you can tell it was kind of speaking from experience. I mean, not really, but
yeah,
it makes sense. Like, she's writing from her experience, like a war college, military. If she's a military wife, makes sense.
So another thing that I think is interesting. So she graduated from Troy University, which I believe is now in Alabama, where she studied European history and English. And she graduated in 2010, which I think makes her currently 35. I couldn't find her age elsewhere. But why I think that's interesting is because she has a big emphasis. A big theme in the book is like who gets to write history, and she studied history. So I thought that she made another connection there.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, the getting to write history. I don't want to talk about all our talking points, but the history thing, the who wrote the book, is interesting to me.
Yeah, I wish you dove deeper into that because I actually find that part super interesting. But
yeah, I do too.
I needed more, and it was 2 seconds. But
yeah.
So she found inspiration to write her first book. It's called Full Measures. It's a contemporary romance novel. When her husband was on his 3rd deployment in the Middle East, and she said that she would read a book a day. So she had time to write her first book, which again is like, I think in the category of smut, like adult romance, but not fantasy. They're more contemporary. And she received a book deal for Full Measures during her husband's fourth deployment, and published it a month after he returned home in 2014. And then she just continued to write other series. So like her other series, also in contemporary romance, is Renegades. And that was published in 2016.
Yeah, I heard that she wrote like erotica. That's what I've heard. But adult romance is like a nicer way of saying that. Because adult romance doesn't necessarily mean erotica. Like, it could just be like an adult romance with spice. Erotica is like, I don't know. I'm not a professional classification of books person. But
same. I haven't driven. Okay. Anyways, I have not.
I haven't driven.
I haven't driven. And goodbye. I'm done. No, no, I agree. So the connection there is interesting. That like that's her background as opposed to fantasy building, which I think makes sense because, like we mentioned, this book is mostly romantasy, and I think the fantasy came later.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, to our point, this is romance forward, and I think is like I'm not going to say the beginning of the romantasy genre, but to me, this was the click of like, there is now something called romantasy that I didn't know existed. It maybe didn't even exist 2, 3, 4 years ago. I think now is its own genre that we need to recognize and classify so that people are aware of what they're getting into. I think that's important.
Yeah, because it's wildly popular and we're going to keep seeing books like this. There are already so many examples of it. So
Yes, exactly.
So this book has been doing really well recently. It was just published May 2nd, 2023, and it's already the #1 bestseller on Amazon. And people think that it's due to grassroots level marketing. It's being spread around like wildfire, word of mouth to other people who are also into very popular series. Again, ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses. So like that's how it was recommended to me. It was just like, if you like A Court of Thorns and Roses and need something to fill the void, read this. And so it's super popular on Book Talk on TikTok. It's hard to like not read or see videos about it.
It had an insane marketing budget. I mean, I even saw that the book itself, if you find it in store, there are copies of it that have like a sprayed edge that has like the dragons like on the side of the book where it's like black with like gold sprayed edges, which is an insane thing to do for a first run of a book that you've like never that like this is her entry level into this like debut into this genre, and you're already releasing books with like sprayed edges. I'm not the one that noticed this, so this is someone else who said this, and I was like, yeah, this is actually insane. Where that just goes to show how much they like pushed this book, like her publishing team marketed the hell out of this book. The fact that they would like invest that much in the like hardcovers when they don't even necessarily know if it was going to do well. And it clearly did. Clearly their marketing worked, and they found their audience very quickly.
I'm confused about what you said. Is that like a rare thing? Like, so the sides are spray painted? What do you mean?
Yes.
So sorry.
So sprayed edge is like when a hardcover, so you have like the hardcover of a book, and then the side where the pages are, so not the spine, like the opposite side where the pages are, they might put a design on like the pages that like when the book is closed, you see the design. That isn't something that like traditionally comes with a hardcover book, especially if this is like a new novel, right? And they don't necessarily have any like precedence into is this book going to be successful. It would be different if it was like a Sarah J Maas book, because she could release like notes on toilet paper at this point, right? And people would buy it. Like that's different versus like this is your entry into a fantasy romance genre. Like she's not a well-known author overall. So it's just like that was a big investment into that book that I think speaks to their marketing on it. That they were probably very confident that it was going to do well, because otherwise why would you do that? But like that's just an expensive way of creating a hardcover to do for a book that that is like new to the genre, and an author that's new to the genre. That's my point.
That's so interesting. Okay. Thanks for explaining. Yeah, that's a good segue to my next point is how we think it's connected to ACOTAR and how we can't unsee the connections. There's just so many. So we do think, again, Rebecca's background in adult contemporary romance writing helped her to write Fourth Wing, but she was writing those books in the 2010s, right? And it wasn't until 2020, 2021 when she started writing Fourth Wing, after everyone saw the popularity of ACOTAR. And again, ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses. If you hadn't read those books, I'm so sorry. These are going to be spoilers.
We mention them all the time too. So if you haven't read, if you liked Fourth Wing, if you're here and you're still listening and you liked Fourth Wing, read A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is I think the first book in the romantasy genre. It was it was the creation of the romantasy genre, if I had to say. My expert opinion.
Yeah. If there's others, they probably weren't as popular and didn't have as much of a cultural impact.
Agreed.
I can't say that word. Say cultural 3 times fast.
Cultural. I don't
hard.
know.
Yeah.
It is hard.
English is hard. Okay. Anyways, these similarities that we noticed, probably you did too. The flying, obviously dragons, obviously leathers, Rhysand and Xaden. Violet is just like Farah. I don't know if are there dragons in ACOTAR? There might be, but I mean, it's definitely in Throne of Glass, which is a huge, if you read those, Manon has dragons, and I feel like that's a big theme in those books. And then the Shadows by Xaden. He's just like Rhysand. How can you not unsee it?
I mean, even the way he's described is basically Rhysand, like dark hair, tawny skin, so like ethnically ambiguous, where it doesn't mean anything, but he's just has darker skin. Instead of purple eyes, he has like black eyes with gold flecks, because of course he does. And yeah, shadow powers, which is just it's very Rhysand coded. Like we just took Rhysand and put him in like one of those like kaleidoscopes a little bit, just like we're just gonna change him a little bit. We got Xaden.
That's a good analogy. A kaleidoscope, just twist it around, and then new book,
New
millions.
book.
Yeah,
Millions, indeed.
and I do think Violet is a lot like Farah. I get a sense of that. Maybe not her like background, but like the way that she loves to read and like is like brave and sometimes does stupid things like Farah.
I mean, the like protagonists, the like female main characters of these books are always very similar. Someone that you can like get behind, someone you don't dislike necessarily, but is because they're definitely always an element of like self-inserts, like always partially a self-insert, because that's the point of the romantasy genre, is to be a self-insert.
Like the writer writes themselves into it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's so like the writer is writing themselves into it, or like is just creating a character to allow anyone to identify with the person to some extent, which is the point of romance, right? You want to identify with the female main character. So
makes sense. I actually have a question. I'll just bring this up now because it makes sense as we're talking about it. But apparently, Rebecca Yarros has a disability that she put into Violet as well. And I only found this out by going on TikTok. I didn't know this as I was reading. And it was like, why didn't you explicitly say it? Because the whole time I'm like, why do you keep writing her small and fragile? Why was there not an explicit disability said? So apparently, Rebecca Yarros and her kids have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a degenerative condition that affects connective tissues in the human body and results in hypermobility, joint pain, and brittle bones and premature graying hair. And so I was curious, did you know?
I only knew from TikTok also. So I'd heard this going into the book, like that the main character had a disability. So I was like aware of it, but I don't think it was written. It's hard to say because like I don't have like a chronic disability, so I don't want to like take away if it was well written or not from somebody who maybe experiences that and felt represented in this. So if they enjoyed, if it was good representation, great. I personally, I didn't really get it. Yeah, I don't know if it really added much to the story. The way that it was described, because it wasn't explicitly named, which was maybe done because this is like a fantasy world and like they don't have these types of terminologies. Like you can't name like a modern day illness in a fantasy world. Although we did name the season or like the months January, February, March, April, and that killed me. It killed me. And I know that she explains it as like it's translated into modern English. It says this in the beginning of the book, but I was like, oh, this kills me. But regardless, we can't necessarily name these illnesses here. But the way it was described, where she's just frail and she's weak. I took it more as like a hyper femininity, masculinity thing, like in the same way that that's described as like in A Court of Thorns and Roses, where like where the men are so hyper masculine and like growl, and then the women are so frail and small and petite, but then they get strong because we have to do that because we are feminists. Like that's how I took it. Yeah, I didn't take it as like anything to really understand like the experience of a chronic illness. I don't think it was successful in doing that from my perspective.
I agree. And you brought up a good point. Like if that was representation for you, that's great.
Yeah, I just don't think it like communicated well. I just think in the context of it, it was more so like a way to just describe her as weak in a way that I guess we can all kind of relate to, which maybe that's good. Like maybe that's a good thing. But it didn't come off as like she has a particular illness. It just came off as, look at this pretty petite girl.
Yeah. Tropey. Yeah.
Tropey. Yes, that's a good way to describe it. Tropey.
But anyways, more to this about why we think she might have taken inspiration from ACOTAR. I went and looked up her past tweets. Twitter has a great search tool where you can search people's past tweets for specific keywords. Because I was trying to find like she must have read it a while ago, back in 2019. Someone was asking her about, or we're talking to her about ACOTAR on Twitter, and she said that this is implying that she's a fan of Asriel. She says, I mean Rhys, but really, but as, and that's Asriel. And does Asriel have the shadow powers? Did I get that wrong?
He does. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought Rhysand had some shadow powers too, but I think Asriel's the one mostly for it.
Okay, gotcha. So we're thinking maybe Xaden is
Yeah,
Asriel coded.
Asriel coded. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think he's like both. I think he's like Rhysand and Asriel
Yeah,
coded. He's
together, combined.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, someone said, "What's one book you always recommend?" And Rebecca Yarros said, "A Court of Thorns and Roses" by Sarah J. Maas. And someone underneath that said, "Oh, I have this in audio, haven't got to it yet." And she said, Rebecca said, "You have to listen. Book 2 is my favorite. I read it at least 3 times a year." And that's also our favorite. Is that the Mist and Fury, the second one?
That is the best one, A Court of Mist and Fury.
And that plays into the twist that was in ACOTAR, that Rhys was actually a good guy. Xaden's actually a good guy. So
spoiler for ACOTAR. Sorry, guys. I mean, we say that. We said it. Yeah, Sarah J. Maas twist, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she has like good ideas. I just don't think the execution was, again, for a romantasy novel, I think it was perfect. I think it was a great romantasy novel. I think in its larger ambitions, the book fell short, but we can deep dive further now.
And that's a good segue, deeper dive into specific parts of the book. So here are more specific questions. I was curious about your initial thoughts on the universe and the universe building. I know we already talked about a little bit about like there could be more. There could be more detail.
There absolutely could. Like I think just the why we're at war, why is this country at war? I'm going to hold complete judgment on that until we see the rest of the books. Because I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe there's more coming, right? Like it's hard to judge it with just the first book. And there's just like a potential that we have like a false narrator. Although the book is written by a friend. So this is when we were talking about like the idea that history is written by like the like by the winner, or this idea is like who gets to tell the story. If you see the intro of the book, like the prologue or whatever, it says it's written by someone who went to this war college. I think the name is something with a J. I can like look it up right now. But regardless, it's like a friend of Violet's that is not involved in the story, who's recounting the story for us, which I think is interesting. So like, do we rely on her perspective? I don't know. You know, if this is something that we like, if we're supposed to be thinking about, interesting. But regardless, so like why do we not have more context into who we're fighting? I think is one thing. Does Violet just not know, or does this person who's retelling the story does not know? I don't know. Interesting. Or do we just not care? Probably. We just don't care, if we're honest. And I think like there were elements of like the world building that we were supposed to get when Violet was like speaking out, like reciting just like knowledge as she was stressed. Like that was her like character quirk, where she's like walking across the parapet and she's just like reciting facts. And some people had more of an issue with this than I did, which is like reviews that I've read, that like if this is important information, you can't just be spitting it out to us here. And I agree, because I didn't catch any of it. So I'm just hoping it wasn't important information that we were supposed to understand about the world, because I didn't get any of it. So we'll see.
Same. It was hard for me to like visualize what's happening on top of that. So I bet you it was, and we're just
yeah, maybe that explains some of our questions. Yeah, where it's like, who are we fighting? Are we not supposed to know? Why is no one questioning who we're fighting? And like we're just sending these children off to war and are dying and like no one's asking questions. I guess like that's fine. I mean, I can believe that to some extent. You know,
yeah,
we see some of that here, but like I don't know. Just there should be. It's not a believable situation. Like we're not in a believable war, and I don't understand the stakes at all.
Yeah, I think that Sarah J. Maas did a good job in Throne of Glass of building out the universe and the world, because I was super interested in like what regular townspeople did, and that was super interesting to me, and I thought that was missing. Like there was more emphasis on the romance. Again, we keep saying that, but I think that's important to keep bringing up, because I wish there was more world building. I didn't know if this was a college or a high school. I didn't know their ages. Maybe I just missed that. And so if it was college, which I eventually picked up on, I wanted to know more about their youths, like their backstories. Like I feel like that was missing, and I felt like that should be integral to the story to understand their decision making. And I know obviously they're keeping some of that secret for now, right? We might learn that book 2 includes a lot more of that information, but I felt like there were points where that she wanted us to feel something for a character and I didn't feel it. Like I didn't care that Liam died. No offense. I know other people felt that way or felt sad about that. I didn't really understand like the dynamics between her family, and like I wish I just knew more about certain situations. Like her dad kept getting brought up, and I wish I knew like what it was like growing up with him and things like that. Like her sister and stuff. Like there was a big scene about her leaving her sister because her sister was trying to hold down literally the fort against like Griffin riders, and like I didn't really have an emotional tie to her sister. So I'm like, I just wish there was more emphasis on the backstories. And this is hard to read books like this after you've read Six of Crows, which is an excellent series where they do a really good job of explaining the backstories of characters. I missed that.
Yeah, the backstories here meant nothing. And like I don't understand why her mother hates her so much. That is like sending her, which again, I think I've seen theories as to why. Because but in the context of this, I'm like, why is her mother trying to murder her? Like, why is she sending her off to this college? Then we don't believe she can actually do it. It's just, yeah, there's just not enough understanding of their motivations at all.
And this fits into my next question, is just like what are our thoughts on the writing style? And Olivia and I have a Slack group where we talk to each other frequently about like the books and that we're reading and comparing it to other books we're talking about. But I'll just say, I think we both thought that the writing style was a little bit immature, like the way that they described and depicted the characters. And I saw a good TikTok, I forget the creator, but they said like real people don't talk this way. And again, I know it's fantasy, so it's not real world like Earth, but it's still hard to imagine people speaking the way that she depicted. It's like, it's good for a book, but like if this were to turn into a show, I can see it being wildly different because you have to interpret this sometimes cheesy content, you know, to match what other people can like relate to, you know? So I thought that was a little odd. And yeah, just like the way that they talked about being horny 24/7, calling people hot when they're about to kill you. It was just a lot that I'm like, I can't see this.
I agree. Yeah. The horniness was just so prevalent throughout the entire book that it was overwhelming. And I just, and this is again like to bring back the romantasy versus fantasy genre. And this was just so clear that we are now in romantasy and not fantasy with romance, because it was so much. We're talking about like sex all the time or horniness all the time. And like, yeah, the girl's sparring with Xaden and is just thinking about how hot he is and how much she's attracted to him. And I'm like, that is not my thought. Even if I think the guy's attractive, that is not what I'm thinking if he's about to like kill me or just at least hurt me seriously in this situation. And I wish that she'd used, and it's not even that I'm opposed to that, like saying like, oh, the main character is attracted to the other main character. That's not necessarily the problem. It's just like, why are we using words like hot and so fucking beautiful? Like, why? And we've talked about this a little bit in our Slack channel where it's not, those are not those are not, to your point of like, this is not how we speak. That's not the language that I'm using, at least personally, if I'm like attracted to somebody. Even in my own internal narrative, I'm not like, oh my God, he's so fucking hot. I'm not thinking that. Maybe some people do, but that's just not, it's like more complex. And I think like we want to see more of the like the dynamic or more of the way that builds. Like, oh, maybe it's just like conflicting feelings. We just want more depth into how we're describing this experience and not just like, oh, he's gonna kill me, but he's so effing hot. Oh my God. Like, why? Let's get deeper. Tell me more.
Let's dig deep. What do you think makes them hot? We're bringing our researcher, UX research background into this. It's just a lens we look at everything from now on. But I feel like there's ways to describe him being hot instead of literally saying hot.
Yes, the saying hot is just really immature, and I feel like it's kind of lazy. It's just a little bit of lazy writing. And maybe the argument is like, well, that's just like what Violet's thinking. And I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that that's like what she's thinking in that moment. I don't buy that that's like what anyone's thinking in that moment. Maybe.
Yeah. For
Maybe I'm
someone
wrong.
who's as well read and who's in her 20s, yeah, it's hard to believe. That's why I thought she
Yeah.
was 16. I was confused.
Yes. I mean, this book is a YA fantasy with sex, with spice, right? That's like what this is. It's not depicting anything like better than that. It is just YA. And YA is just younger characters. I sometimes have trouble. I struggle with people classifying books as YA to allow them to be juvenile, because I don't think YA is a juvenile genre of books. Like, I think YA can have really well told stories. Like Six of Crows is a YA fantasy and is objectively one of like the best YA novels that exists right now, right? Like, and Harry Potter's a YA novel. Like, so I hate using the term YA to belittle a book, but if you have to think of like the stereotype of YA, this is probably that.
I think, well, so it's technically new adult, which is a little bit different, but it's just a little more
Yes.
elevated because they're in their 20s. That's like the
That's
only difference. But otherwise, like,
Yes.
it has a lot of similarities, overlaps with YA.
Yeah, I mean, new adult is just like a new genre that was created, like a new categorization of books that was created honestly because of ACOTAR. I really think ACOTAR was the first book that created new adult, because ACOTAR used to be in the children's section because young adult and children's were right next to each other. And I remember having read that book and walking through the children's section and seeing ACOTAR, and I'm like, this is nuts. Like, this is nuts. Like, this should not be here. And it's because it didn't have a place for it yet, where it was like a 19-year-old, but she's giving like there's smut, right? Like, there was no place for it. So new adult is why that was there, like why I think they created it literally for ACOTAR, and then these books came about. And I think I said this in an earlier podcast, that I do think new adult is just becoming like YA. New adult is YA with smut. That's what it is. That's all new adult is. So I think that's my point. Like, new adult is just the same thing you get in YA, and then you add some spice.
A little bit of spice.
A little bit of spice, because they're like they're of age. They're like 19 and up, and
Yeah.
that's the difference, really.
All right. So we pulled a couple questions from Goodreads. There's a user, her name's Leanne, that's her first name, who wrote a number of these questions. We're not going to go through all of them, but thank you, Leanne. These were great questions. We appreciate it. So a couple of these topics we've already kind of brushed on, but Olivia, I was curious. So there was a lot of foreshadowing. We've already talked a little bit about it. Specifically, Xaden keeping secrets from Violet. I was curious, did you see that coming? And if so, was it fair of Xaden to ask Taryn to keep that secret too?
Yes, I did see it coming. Really was not surprising whatsoever, especially when they got together like 2/3 into the book, and you're like, okay, where's the third act breakup? Because there's always a third act breakup if they're like already together by halfway. And I knew that he was obviously forming some sort of rebellion. The dragons and all of them keeping a secret, I'll admit, was like a little bit of a surprise, because I was like, how would they know? I mean, it makes sense that they know, but it's like, how did they know and then just like not say anything to Violet? That I was just like, I felt a little bit embarrassed for her. I was like, oh, girl, your dragons knew and you like didn't know? That's embarrassing. Like,
that I felt was unbelievable, because
yes,
the war is a human construct, and dragons, I feel, are above or outside of these like human norms, human laws, human conflicts, right? They're like these super intelligent beings that have been around for centuries. And I thought that was odd. I understood why, like the mating situation. His mate is Sigale, who kept that information from, anyways, yeah, you get it. But like, I just thought that was a little unbelievable.
it is. Yeah. And I just didn't really buy the whole secret in general. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, obviously we knew this was coming.
I kind of foresaw too the twist of like who the baddies are, right? Like that there's secret information about like wyverns existing and things like that. I honestly, I knew someone was alive, either her brother or her dad. I wasn't sure who. So when like her brother towards the end, big spoiler, is still alive, I'm like, okay, this isn't the biggest spoiler.
No, it's like you get that literally. Yeah. The moment her brother gets mentioned more than once, you're like, okay, he's alive. And they made it really obvious that like the like the leadership is like the evil or like wrong or are the bad guys, right? Like she's like discovering that like, oh, there was like a battle that they didn't know about, you know, things like that. And I think sometimes when that happens, I'm like, this has to be like intentional. Like we're supposed to guess at this point, I would think. Why Violet hasn't guessed, unclear to me. But you're mentioning all of this stuff so blatantly. Of course, your mom is the bad guy. Like, of course, these people are the bad guys. Like, I've read enough of these books to know.
And
this is Divergent. I've read
Same.
Divergent. I know this.
And I feel like, again, we're going to keep harping on this, but like the lack of backstories for characters, you know, it makes us not understand their decision making. Like, I thought Harry Potter did a good job. Like, we understood the history and backstories of the professors, like even the professors who weren't central characters, right? Like Snape's twists, I didn't see coming when I read those books. You know what I mean? Like, but you understood it when their like morals were explained, their histories were explained. Like you said, like I believe her mom's evil, sure. All the generals like not great people, and I'm like, I saw this coming. These aren't news. This isn't news to me. Even Xaden's twist, I totally get. I totally saw it coming. It was just easy to catch.
Yeah, it was. Which again is fine for this genre of book. Like it's like I keep going back to that because I sometimes feel like bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong criticizing this book, but this book is romantasy. Again, it's not trying to do all of this amazingly. At least I hope it's not, because it doesn't.
Yeah, you're not reading it for the things we mentioned that we wish were there, and so that's why we're giving it this review. But obviously, the great reviews it's getting and the popularity is great and warranted if it fits into that genre, which it does, the romantasy genre. So we don't want you all to think we're haters. We just were expecting something different, and that's why I guess we're confused about the popularity, but we get it if it's explicitly romantasy.
Yeah, if we're targeting this is a romantasy book. Yeah, I just think it shouldn't try and be something it's not. Which it is. It's trying to be to some extent, but if we just like keep it, if we all recognize this is a romantasy book and it's nothing more, then like great. Beyond that, no go.
Yeah, don't think too hard.
No. Two brain cells. Not even. Put those two brain cells to bed.
Because like as I was looking up like book club questions, a lot of the questions we're about to go through like get really deep, and I think that we don't have enough context to answer them. So like for example, this is very interesting, but like why do you think the author chose to write the last chapter from Xaden's perspective? I was confused. I was confused too. Yeah.
I thought that was a really strange decision, and I like don't believe it was intentional. Like I think it was just so that like we get Xaden. I don't know. I'm not confident that that was done purposely for any particular reason, except that we just wanted to see. Maybe the next books will have more Xaden, and like that'd be cool. I like dual perspective books. I'm cool with that. And we just wanted to see the surprise from his perspective. But I'm not convinced there was any intentionality in that decision.
Same. If you guys know, let us know, because we don't know. Thank you.
Yeah. At least it wasn't communicated well to me if there was any intentionality in that.
Mm-mm. All right. So Indarna said that, by the way, I love Indarna. I love the dragons. I think those were good ads, and like the fact that they were sentient and could like speak to you. I thought that was cool.
Dragons were the best part.
Yeah. I would read books just about what they're doing. Super cool.
Except for the horny.
Yeah. Except for dragon smut. Maybe not that.
Except for dragon sex that you then feel, which is like the worst thing to ever. I wish I could erase that from my brain. Please.
Yeah, let's undo that. It crossed levels. I was like, I did not need that in my life. So
no, horrible. Do you know what like Omega Verse is?
Mm-mm.
Do you know what this is? This is like, I hate that I even know this. I've never read anything in it, but it's like a subsect of like fan fiction in which there's like, I don't even need to explain more, but essentially that's what that was. This was Omega Verse. Like this idea that like someone else's like horniness is like what you feel. It like goes down a bond. It's awful. I was like, why is this here? It's terrible.
Interesting. I can see people being into it. Again, yeah, we're not critiquing it if you're into it. We just didn't expect it. I
didn't expect it. And it's not my thing. Like not my thing. So it's not great to see it here.
Very interesting.
Yeah, upsetting.
Anyways, yeah. And Darna said that signets reflect who the writer is at their core. How do you think lightning wielding reflects Violet? What signet do you find most beneficial, and which one would you want? I was confused with that. I mean, I thought like it just explains her growth, like as a person, like, and that's why she got lightning. So
Yeah, I didn't think anything seriously about it. I didn't really understand the whole concept of like you get this signet, but only when the dragons think you're worth it. But Taryn, I don't know how to say his name, like thought he was worth it, she was worth it the whole time. Like I didn't really understand this relationship fully. Like I just didn't really get it where like the dragon is the one in control of this, but he's like purposely withholding it from her. I don't know. It was kind of like didn't make total sense to me. The lightning thing, this didn't bother me nearly as much, but like lightning is like such a common like YA fantasy skill that you learn, right? Like always the chosen woman or girl has like lightning powers. It's just like a very common thing. I can name at least like 2 other books where like that's the case. So
wait, which one? Percy
Red
Jackson.
Queen or Percy Jackson, sure. I mean, yeah, he's not like Percy himself, but like I know Red Queen, like lightning. That's like the first one that comes to my head. But it's just like a common fantasy trope. So like it's fine. Like that honestly didn't bother me too much, but I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Lightning. Because of course she would. Of course. And it's like the powerful one that only like 1 in a million get. Like of course she's unique. Like, yeah, of course. Of course she is.
Yeah.
Obviously,
main character energy. Farah, most powers. Violet,
right.
most
Although
powers.
I had no memory she had does Farah have lightning powers? I'm sure she does. Like
she has them all. I don't know which
Yeah.
one, but of all the kingdoms, she has all the powers. But yeah.
Exactly. So she probably does have lightning powers. So there you go. Just like a common one. Just very common.
All right. Next question. This is going to be fun because I don't think you and I have thought 2 seconds about this, but it appeared that Mira and Dane both knew a lot more than Violet about the retribution Xaden swore against General Sorrengail. How much more do you think they knew about the reasons for the rebellion and the current war poor Emil is fighting against the Venin? I mean, I don't know. I wonder if like her sister has more information because she's higher up, and then Dane clearly has more information. Obviously, that played into the end battle, but his dad is also a general, so
and it's like friends with her mom, right? They're like, yeah,
probably, yeah. And the mom and Dane's dad are friends,
yeah.
So I'm assuming information's shared. Why is it kept from Violet, the daughter? Does she want her daughter to die? I just felt like she didn't.
I think
care
she
about her
does.
daughter. You know what I mean?
Which maybe was part of the chronic illness thing. Like she just doesn't want like a weak daughter. She's probably just like a bad mom. Like, okay, cool. That's lovely. Good for you. But yeah, I'm assuming they know more. That makes sense. And that's why I'm like, I'm going to withhold like total judgment until we read book 2. But book 2 is already written, I'm assuming, before all these critiques came out. So we'll see like what that means, like if what they know. I've seen some theories where Violet is like part Venin.
I love the conspiracies. But yeah, she said in an interview she has like the whole arc at least known and written out. So I assume she's already writing multiple books at once. So she knows.
Yeah.
And then this is interesting. Again, it's hard to answer these questions without knowing what's going to happen next. But like every year, less dragons are bonding. Do you think that the Navarian politics are at play? Do you think that they just follow the allegiances of the writers or choose writers they feel will support their cause? And again, that's interesting. Yeah, I think we need to know more about the dynamics of like how dragons play into Navarian politics or human politics at all, and like where their allegiances lie. It's very interesting. There's like also history that we need to know. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I don't even know. Do you think the Navarian politics are at play? I mean, maybe. I don't know. This is asking me to think way further about this than I ever really did. And maybe that's to my problem. Maybe I should have thought further about this, but I don't think this book's that deep. I really don't. I don't. I mean, what is it again when you're having your like rebellion kids choose dragons? Like maybe not. Maybe don't do that. Like save them for the kids that you think are on your side and not kids of the rebellion. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Who knows? I just found it so funny that they did this like runway thing of dragons, like where they're like walking in front of the dragons. and they're like, you got to be good for the dragon. They're like looking at you, but then like some of them are blatant jerks, and then of course they get like smited. You're like, why would you do that here when the dragons are like purposely watching you? Like, why are you being a jerk? I don't
I'm
understand.
confused about that. Like when they were yelling or like there's some kids being jerks, I'm like, what did you not listen? Like, did you
Yeah.
not hear that? What is happening? I was so
You got
confused
like
by that.
Yeah, you got like 20 minutes to like not be an asshole, like so that you don't get smited by a dragon. Like you couldn't hold it in? I'm confused, sir. Like what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, very strange.
Didn't get it.
Nope, clearly not. Just cannot be a jerk.
Okay. A couple more questions. I thought this was, again, I didn't think about this that hard. But okay, in chapter 37, the fable is quoted. There's a fable, by the way. It reminded me of in Harry Potter, the fable, kind of like the Grimm brothers fairy tales that like you don't know if it's real or it's fable. I always think that's interesting, and I just wish there was more detail to that. There wasn't. I wanted more because I love that part of the book, like how history's played into this. Anyways, the fable is that. But it was the third brother who commanded the sky to surrender its greatest power, who finally vanquished his jealous siblings at a great and terrible price. The venom then tells her, you could command the sky to surrender all its power. What do you think the significance is that Violet's signet is commanding the sky? She herself says, I am the sky and the power at every storm that has ever been. I am infinite.
But it was the third brother who commanded the sky.
No clue.
The venom then tells her you could command the sky to surrender all its power. What do you think the significance is that Violet's signet is commanding the sky? This is taking this way more seriously than I did.
Yeah. I don't even remember when those parts of the book were talked about. I wasn't paying attention as hard as I should have.
I don't even know if we were supposed to. The fable was quoted, but it was the third brother who commanded the sky to surrender its greatest power, who finally vanquished his jealous siblings at a great and terrible price. I'm assuming that's probably just going to mean like her and her siblings, but I don't know why her siblings are jealous.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we have enough context to answer any of these questions. And I don't think that if we are supposed to be able to answer these kinds of questions, I don't think the book did a good job of giving us any understanding of like where this would play in.
Yeah. Again, I think like we're gonna have to have a like full review of all these books whenever they come out, because I do think I'm hoping that they build upon each other, where we're gonna go back and see all the Easter eggs, because I think I missed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. If someone's coming up with these questions and is like knows something we don't, cool. That makes me interested in like a potential. But I don't think the book invited us to engage in this way at all.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then just a couple more questions, but I thought this was interesting. You know, it keeps getting brought up like dragons don't make mistakes. And I actually did catch on to that is probably important. But I guess General Melgren's dragon gifted the Separatist children a relic that would block his own rider from seeing them. I didn't pick up on that. Very interesting.
That would block his own rider from seeing them. What do you mean? Like
block General Melgren from seeing what the Separatist children are doing if there's more than 3 of them together.
Oh, I actually didn't catch that either. Well, then I guess they're just like team rebellion kids, Separatists.
Right, the dragons specifically.
Yeah.
Like trying. So maybe that explains what we've been talking about, that the dragons might be trying to help. Like the rebellious. Yeah.
Kids, and that's probably why Taryn didn't tell Violet. I mean, because he's just like she's on the fence. We're gonna wait a little bit. Yeah, I mean that seems pretty obvious. Yeah. But I didn't catch that particular detail. Although no, I did. Now I think about it, I just didn't realize that the dragon was the one that gifted the Separatist children a relic. Like I didn't realize that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, that is news to me too. What is happening, Olivia? Did we read this book?
Was this book deeper than we realized?
Like, probably, right. All these people are thinking of like conspiracies that we did not pick up on. So
I mean, again, I'm hopeful. I think we'll talk about like what we want or what we think of the next books. But if this book ends up being more than it offered, then I'm excited. Great. I just don't think that this was written nor presented in a way that did provide this much depth at all.
Yeah. So those are all our questions. You can expect 4 more books, 5 books total, in this series. The second book in the Yarros Empyrean series is titled Iron Flame, and it's out on November 7th. And we will 1000% be reading it and reviewing it. So stay tuned, follow us to keep up for more. But in an interview, Rebecca Yarros said it's going to deal with the theme of history. Who's allowed to tell our history and what happens when only people in power are the ones who record our history. Anything else, Olivia, about Fourth Wing?
I'm interested to see who this like person who wrote the book is. What's her name again? I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the book. That's something that I've seen people talk about, and I'm like, oh, yeah, who is this person that wrote the book, and why is it not Violet? Why is Violet not the one writing her own book? She's a scribe, like by originally, so like, uh-oh. That can't be good. I know we already said that like the Xaden and Violet thing, like him being bad and then turning good may have been the like SJM twist. But there's a part of me that's like, are the fact that like Xaden and Violet are together, even though they technically broke up by the end of the book, but like not really. I mean, they'll be fine, I think. Is that, and are we gonna get an SJM twist 2.0? Or are they both dead? And that's why neither of them are writing the book, you know? I think that's to be continued.
So the book is from the perspective of someone writing it, all of it?
Yes. So I'm trying to go back to like the beginning of the book, but the book is not written by Violet. Like it doesn't say Violet wrote, it explicitly says that the book was written by someone else. Let me see. Like in the following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language by Jasenia Neilwart, which is not someone we've met, I don't think.
It is, isn't it? It's her friend in the library.
Is it her friend in the library?
Pretty sure.
Her
remember her friend? Is she blind?
I do remember her, but I don't remember if her name was Jasenia or not. She might be the girl that's in
figured they're putting way too much emphasis on her character, like at random parts, and I'm like, you're gonna keep coming up. Yeah,
you're right. So she is that girl. You're totally correct. Okay. So she wrote this book,
gotcha.
And like all events are true, and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. Okay. So I just think it's interesting that this is from her perspective and not Violet's. I guess Violet is not a scribe, so maybe that's why. But I don't know. It's just interesting. Interesting. Again, might be thinking too hard about this, but I didn't come up with that. Someone else put that idea in my mind, and I was like, oh no, what's going on?
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that at all. 0%. So that's interesting.
Because it's not written in any other way. It's written as if from Violet's perspective. So you wouldn't think it's not Violet writing it. So it is kind of an odd thing. Like, again, I'm 100% convinced that that was put there for any like particular world building reason.
Yeah.
But willing to, I mean, it was put there for world building in the sense that like there are scribes. I'm willing to be open to the fact that maybe there was more meaning behind it, but unclear.
Yeah. I wonder if Dane eventually switches sides and becomes good and then puts his hand on Violet's head to be able to see from that first perspective. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
To help.
I thought that twist was probably the best twist. The one where he like held her hand and like saw her memories. I thought that was like the best twist in the entire book. Everything else was predictable. That one was the legitimate one where I was like, oh.
Yeah. That was good because then you went back and realized all the times he did touch her before she knew.
Yes, exactly. I thought that was like, I was like, okay, you got me. Good one.
You got us.
I was doing, but you got me there. You got me there. Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to read it. I mean, I'm gonna read Iron Flame, and I think Iron Flame will be telling if like there is more to this story than we realize. I'm hoping there is. Is this going to be a better world building book, or is this just going to be romantasy? We will see. To be continued.
To be discussed. Yeah, I'm hoping that as well. More universe building, and also more, now that we know people's alliances, I think, so far, then she can do backstories. I hope so. That would help me a lot with context.
It would help me a lot too. I agree. We just need it. We need to learn more about all of them. We just need better understanding. Agreed. Thanks for listening to this episode of Fangirl Feels. We hope you enjoyed it. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on all the podcasting feeds. So please like, follow, subscribe wherever you listen and follow us. Rate us, give us a review. I haven't said that before, but we're saying it now. Follow us on social media. We're on Fangirl Feels Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Also, if you want to watch the like visual version of this, and if you want to see my like really cool outfit as dragon riders, both Tanya and I has really cool outfits as dragon riders, which I will put on my Top Gun glasses for the end of this now. And we'll be back in your feed next week with another topic. We are back to once a week. We were posting twice a week for a while, but due to the strike, we are going back to once a week. And we will continue to deep dive into these books. Let us know if you like this episode and if there's any other books you think we should read and deep dive into, because this was fun and I liked it. Until next time. Anything else to add, Tanya?
I was just gonna say 3, 2, 1.
Bye!